hazmat situation. I'm not talking about the tanker truck that's upside down on the highway, although that is a possibility. But you know, on a day-to-day operation, what can we? Anything come to mind that you guys? Blood. Huh?
That's
Well, it's kind of bloodborne pathogen. I'm talking about hazardous materials.
Fertilizer, farmers.
Fertilizer, yeah, we got fertilizer and all up, you know, we got 2 big fertilizer plants here. Somebody goes down, what else?
people with space heaters in there.
Space heaters, so that'd be carbon monoxide. We don't have the little carbon monoxide detectors anymore, so if you have somebody down of some sort of issue and people have headaches, and you may not want to spend a lot of time in there, right? Hazmat awareness is about recognizing the situation, taking the appropriate steps to keep yourself safe, reporting. We have some specific responsibilities as first responders, and basically it's, the first thing we do on scene is to do what? Any idea?
Keep yourself safe.
Keep yourself safe. Exactly. That's kind of the first thing, is make sure that you don't put yourself in a situation that's gonna, be a problem. The second thing we want to do is what? Anything? What would we want to do? You roll up on you see a cloud, and you're the first unit on scene. What are we doing?
Let everybody else know.
We get everybody out of the way, isolate the
situation first.
What's it? Blue Canaries. We've got a Blue Canary video. I'll show you here in a minute. But yeah, we want to isolate the situation. What do we have at our disposal to be able to determine how far we keep people away?
ERG.
We got the ERG. We'll go over that here in a little bit. And then, what are we reporting? We took Colin Lincoln. What are we going to tell him?
Placard number.
Wait, do we want something done? Anything you can offer them.
I'm just saying, you guys roll up on scene. What are you doing other than just laughing at each other or talking to each other? What are we telling Lincoln?
You're going to advise them of what you see and what resources
Just
you're going to
description of the situation and exactly what's going on, right? Exactly what you see, identify,
location.
blah, blah, blah. All right, so, sorry, my little mouse thing is a little awkward, so I'll try to, hopefully the sound's gonna work. No.
It's on, so you gotta turn it up. This is on the other night.
Turn it up on your computer.
Okay, so obviously, I didn't get the reaction that I was hoping for this morning, but you guys are all pretty sleepy. It's what you get for putting hazmat up first. But obviously the Griffin family here has some sort of stuff. They're not sure what it is, and instead of backing off, what do? They start playing with it, and all kinds of obviously nasty things happen to Stewie there, and he can move trees with his mind, and Chris can light stuff on fire. Obviously not a good situation. What other situations can we find ourselves in? Meth labs. I mean, I know there probably are a few in town. I don't know. I'm sure they're around somewhere. Maybe we don't hear about them too often, but people are making drugs in their homes, etc. And we can have some nasty old chemical spills. We had a situation up here on 235 where we had they ordered the house demolished. They demolished the house. They just kind of took all the debris to the dump, and next thing you know, there was a few chemical things that got mixed together, and the fire started up at the dump. We can find ourselves in that. We go into a lot of houses every day, every week, every year, and people feeling sick for whatever reason. Could be their surroundings. So be very, very careful. Things that can happen to you very, very quickly. I'm sure people have seen this next video. But it's, I show it again because things can happen. Mike, this thing is killing me here.
Should have come prepared.
Yeah, I did, but the plan got changed. This is a video of a police officer killed by an ammonia gas leak. And if you haven't seen it, watch closely.
I wouldn't even have driven that close, turn around and leave.
What's the driving shoulder? And you are.
So he thinks the car is just on fire at this point. Guy down in the middle of the road. Down he goes. And it's about that quick. Ammonia gas killed him instantly. He's dead. He's laying. You know, he's still breathing now, but you can hear the mic cutting in and out. He's trying to breathe. That's his mic cutting the radio in and out, but it didn't last too much longer. I know this is a pretty graphic video, and I know it can be upsetting, but what I want to point out is we take a lot of things for granted. Obviously, he did that day. He just rolled up on an accident scene. He's doing his due diligence. He jumps out with his first aid kit. Oh my God, I got someone to save, and finds out that, oh my God, I'm in just as much trouble as they were. So sometimes you have to back up, take a look around. What do we got going on? Resist the urge to charge in, basically, you know, obviously don't be a hero, whatever, but it can happen that quickly. You know, like I said, we go into a house, somebody's down, somebody comes home, finds someone down. Why did they go down? I don't know. Well, there could be an issue in the house. It could, you know, the house could be full of carbon monoxide. Could very well be, and you're in there treating the person, all of a sudden, you know, carbon monoxide is a little slower acting. You have to absorb it, obviously. It's not like poison gas where it's going to kill you instantly, but, you know, we do have some especially hazardous substances in town. You know, there's some places where you, like Andrew mentioned, you know, that the fertilizer, you get some of that fertilizer stuff mixing around, some of the chemicals that they use in there, that ain't good stuff. And we would need to prepare ourselves, you know, to do that. So, you know, what would we do if we don't feel safe going into a residence or going into a scene to extract someone? What are we gonna do?
Bail out, call hazmat.
Well, call the fire department at least, you know. I mean, the fire department at least come in with CVA, atmospheric testing, to determine whether or not the, you know, the scene is safe for at least initially, oxygen deficiencies, etc. You know, same thing with enclosed spaces. You can have an oxygen deficient atmosphere, somebody down in the bottom of a manhole, somebody in an enclosed compartment, and we go into, oh, we got to get them out of there. Well, let's not be so hasty. So anyway, any questions so far? So we talked about the ERG. We have one in the office. We carry one on each truck. 2016 is the latest version. They update them every 4 years. There's a great little video here I'm going to show you. I think we might have seen it last year, but it's so good I'm going to show it to you again. I'm not. I think that's the right one.
HazMat Solutions is proud to introduce the 2016 Emergency Response Guidebook. And this video highlights what's new and provides a short introduction on how to use the ERG. First responders use the guidebook during the initial phase of a hazardous materials incident. As always, resist the urge to rush into the scene and always stay upwind, uphill, and if possible, upstream from the release. Do you have limited information? Can you only see just a placard or ID number, or just barely make out the shape of the truck? Following the newly added flowchart will help get information from the correct guidebook page. The new table of contents provides a page number for each section in the guidebook. The book starts with a description of how to read a shipping document on the inside cover and ends with a list of emergency response numbers on page 396. The table of markings, labels, and placards includes several new graphics. Standing out more, the numbers for the guide pages are now shown as white numbers in a black circle. The railcar and road trailer identification charts have new containers and details such as special features, types of fittings, and most importantly, container pressure. Use the new globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of chemicals section to quickly identify the hazards associated with the transportation of a material. Recently, the U.S. Department of Transportation adopted portions of the GHS to provide universal warning information for labeling packaging. These symbols, or pictograms, convey specific physical, health, and environmental hazard information, and black symbols on a white background with a red frame. The green bordered tables list chemicals that have a toxic or poison inhalation hazard, such as chlorine or anhydrous ammonia. In the 2016 ERG, you will find more isolation distances in the green bordered Table 1, and Table 3 has added information from new reactivity research for 6 gases which are toxic by inhalation. First responders dealing with hazardous material transportation emergencies need quick, correct information. Personnel responding to the scene need to know what materials they are dealing with and what actions need to be taken to help protect themselves and the public and their communities. Having accurate information during the first crucial minutes is necessary to determine reliable recommendations. This information often determines how quickly the incident is resolved. So how do we use the 2016 ERG? Following the new flowchart, we start with our first piece of information. Then we continually revise our decisions as new information becomes available. As the first responders arrive on the scene, they should get as much information as they can from a distance. Do you only know the UN number? If so, then start with the yellow bordered pages. This section lists hazardous material by the UN or ID number with the goal of gathering isolation distances and response recommendations from the orange guidebook pages. If you can read the name of the hazardous material on the container, use the blue bordered pages to locate the chemical information. In this case, the leaky drum of sodium hydroxide has a guide number of 154. If a placard or label is the only information available, flip to pages 8 and 9 to find the corresponding guide number. If limited to identifying only the shape and size of the transport, refer to pages 10 through 13. Match the outline of the rail tank car or road trailer to find the matching guide number. Be aware, if a P is next to a guide number, the material may suffer a violent polymerization. Monomers such as styrene or vinyl acetate can breach their container if heated or if not inhibited from polymerizing. If the material's name is highlighted in green and on fire, use the appropriate orange guide for evacuation distances. Then protect the downwind direction according to Table 1 for residual material release. If the material's name highlighted in green and not on fire, use the isolation and protective action distances from Table 1 and consult the orange bordered guide to find more safety and response information. If the product includes the reference, when spilled in water, read Table 2 for a list of generated gases, and do not use water or foam as an extinguishing agent. Finally, on the page following the flow chart, don't forget to add contact numbers. Take a minute and list all the cleanup contractors, hazmat teams, rail companies, and any local, state, or federal resources you may need during the time of a hazmat incident as well. Understanding all safety precautions listed in this book will help you assess the situation and get additional help. By getting familiar with the 2016 ERG, you can quickly identify specific hazards of a material and protect yourself and the general public during the initial response of an incident. For a more comprehensive overview of the ERG, click on the instructor PowerPoint and play our game online at our website.
Let's play the game.
Let's play the game. Okay, so in the ERG, the obvious goal is to get to the orange pages. That's the final goal, and there's several different ways we can get there. Obviously, you see the placard number coming down the road or whatever in the diamond. You go to the yellow section, and it's all listed numerically. What the name of the chemical is, and it'll list the guide number next to it, the orange guide number. Again, the blue section is for alphabetical order. If you know the name of the chemical, you can look at it up alphabetically. The green is the isolation distances. So if you see there on the blue pages or the yellow pages that there's it's highlighted in green, you're going to want to flip over to the green section to start working about looking up isolation distances. How far do we keep people away initially? And then once we finally get to our orange section, there's a bunch of great information in here about the fire hazard, public safety, what you use for PPE, and first aid. I know we have our mainstay protocols for injured persons, whatever, but here's some basic first aid instructions to do quickly. It talks about, rinsing for 20 minutes, so this, that, the other, which kind of brings us up into our next little part here is if people are exposed to hazardous materials and we have to respond, it's hopefully we're going to be on what they call the cold side of the event. You have a hot side and the cold side. You have the decontaminated side and the non-decontaminated side. So as people are brought out, you hope that they are decontaminated before we start treating them. But if not, we have to make sure that we go through that process, that you don't obviously introduce decontaminants in further down the line, like at Miles or Penn Bay. If there's if a hazardous materials situation occurs, if the ambulance is coming in, is decontaminated, the hospitals have specific protocols. They set up their decon station right outside. It's in the little washroom right to the left. You don't even go through the second set of double doors. You take a left into the decon room, which will all be set up. They'll wash you down. They'll make you strip, put everything in the buckets, give you Johnnies or whatever they have to give you, jammies or whatever, and get the patient decontaminated before they come into the hospital and contaminate the rest of the hospital. So depending on what the chemical is, it could just be diesel fuel, or it could be something causing a caustic burn that could, every time somebody touches it, it gets worse and worse and worse. Any questions on hazardous materials awareness? Or anything I didn't cover? Awesome. All right, the second part of my training is the global harmonization system. They touched on it briefly here in the other video. I've got another video that's a little bit more in depth, and that's everything to do with the safety data sheets, household chemicals, chemicals we use in the workplace, things we use every day. We take a lot of things for granted. Simple green, if you're washing your boat, or what do we use? Speedball, what are we using now? The
Morning mist.
Morning mist, there's the whole concentrated thing of that sitting in the wall. Well, all of a sudden you get that concentrate on your hand and you breathe it, you eat it, gets on your donut, that wouldn't be good. So we have a system in place that everybody needs to be trained on, and how to be aware of workplace chemicals, how to look them up if we get exposed, how to deal with them. We have a book of material safety data sheets, except it's supposed to be safety data sheets. This book needs to be updated here soon. Anybody know where this book is kept? For EMS?
Utility room.
In the washroom, in the utility room, up above the sink. And that's where EMS keeps all of our workplace chemical stuff. The janitor also has one inside the janitor closet for all the janitorial stuff that the janitor uses. But all the other things that we use in the field here, whether it be diesel fuel, oxygen, whatever, any sort of thing that can be hazardous to us. I know it doesn't sound like oxygen could be hazardous, but it can be in the right concentrates and etc. So again, we'll watch the next little short video, and you'll love this one.
Our global economy means that chemicals may be manufactured and used anywhere in the world. OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, recently revised its hazard communication standard to align with the United Nations globally harmonized system of classification and labeling chemicals. Under the GHS, every chemical supplier will use the same verbiage, pictograms, and messages on their labels to convey hazards. Two significant changes contained in the revised standard require the use of new labeling elements and a standardized format for safety data sheets, formerly known as Material Safety Data Sheets, or MSDS. We will take a closer look at those changes in this training session. Currently, every country has a different system for communicating chemical hazard information, with little or no consistency between the systems. Without global standards, different regions of the world use different symbols to communicate that a substance is hazardous. With the new GHS, Globally Harmonized System Standard, workers can better understand the hazards associated with a chemical, how to protect themselves, and what to do in the case of an exposure. GHS will also help to reduce the cost to governments and companies complying with different systems, enable better communication of chemical information, and increase international trade. Prior to the adoption of GHS, OSHA did not have any specifications for container labeling. As of June 1st, 2015, all labels will be required to have the following elements: a product or chemical identifier, a supplier identifier, one or more pictograms, a signal word, hazard statements, and a precautionary statement. It is important to note that the information conveyed on a label will be consistent with the information contained on the SDS, or Safety Data Sheet. For example, the precautionary statement would be the same on the label and the SDS. It is important that workers understand how to use the label in the workplace. These labels are intended to provide an immediate visual reminder of chemical hazards. Labels make it easier to identify and understand how to properly store hazardous chemicals and how to quickly locate first aid information. Let's take a closer look at a sample chemical label. The product identifier, or name, that's used on the GHS label should match the product identifier used on the SDS. This product identifier lists the chemical identity of the hazardous substance. The name, address, and telephone number of the manufacturer or supplier of the product must be provided on the label. The pictogram will quickly display specific information and make warnings more noticeable and easier for employees to understand. Labels may not have blank or unfilled squares. The pictograms that are required on a particular label are determined by the hazard classification. OSHA has designated 8 pictograms under the new standard for application to our hazard category. This chart shows 9 pictograms. However, this environment pictogram is not mandatory. OSHA's required pictograms must be in the shape of a square set at a point and include a black hazard symbol on a white background with a red frame sufficiently wide enough to be clearly visible. A square red frame set at a point without a hazard symbol is not a pictogram and is not permitted on the label. Signal words are used to denote the hazard's degree of severity. One of these two signal words must appear on the label: danger for more severe hazard categories, or warning for less serious hazards. If the word danger appears on the label, the word warning will not appear. Hazard statements are based on the hazard classification of a chemical and describe the hazard associated with the chemical. A statement should be present for each type of hazard, and multiple similar statements may be combined. Precautionary statements are based on the hazard classification of the chemical. They describe recommended measures that should be taken to protect against hazardous exposures or improper storage or handling of a chemical. Precautionary statements include first aid procedures, and in the event of similar statements, labels are to include the one that contains the most protective information. The safety data sheet, formerly known as the material safety data sheet, is the detailed source of information about the chemical. The SDS is a reference to help ensure a chemical is handled safely and that workers are protected. New safety data sheets will be organized using a specified order of information. The most important information will be listed in the first sections of the SDS. It is important to remember that employers are not required to classify chemicals. Chemical manufacturers are still required to update SDS information whenever there are changes. GHS establishes a standardized 16-section safety data sheet format with a prescribed sequence of information and consistent section headings. Section 1 is identification. Section 2, hazard identification. Section 3, composition or information on ingredients. Section 4, first aid measures. Section 5, firefighting measures. Section 6, accidental release. Section 7, handling or storage procedures. Section 8, exposure controls or personal protection. Section 9, physical and chemical properties. Section 10, stability and reactivity. And Section 11, toxicological information. Sections 12 through 16 are not mandatory, but cover ecological information, disposal consideration, transport information, regulatory information, and Section 16, which covers other information. Since label formats will be standardized, a worker will be able to quickly identify important information, for example, first aid measures, by referring to Section 4, regardless of the chemical that's being used. Or an employee with questions about appropriate PPE will always refer to Section 8. Although chemical manufacturers will have until June 1st, 2015 to comply with the new rule, workers will soon begin to see the new labels and SDSs in their workplace. This is why it's critical that employees are trained and understand the changes and how they affect them early in the transition period. Incorporating GHS helps eliminate confusion created by conflicting national and international requirements. It standardizes the format for the SDSs, or safety data sheets. It improves chemical labeling, and that improves worker safety. Please remember, as you enter client work sites, not all of our clients use the same chemicals. You will receive site-specific training on the chemicals that are used at each client location. Please ask your account manager or your on-site supervisor if you have any questions regarding this training.
Okay, any questions about the safety data sheet program and what it's designed for, what it's used for? As mentioned, Section 4 in there is for first aid. That's certainly valuable information for us if we go back to that hazmat awareness issue, that we find ourselves exposed to a chemical. We want to get that MSDS. All the manufacturers should have one. If you get on scene and you find a chemical and you need to get an MSDS, or a safety data sheet, or need information, what can you do?
Go online if you can get it.
You go online and get it. Everybody's getting there's probably very few people now that don't have access to their phones. You can call Chemtrack, which is located right here. The phone numbers, I'm sure, here. Who else can we call?
Dispatch.
Can call dispatch? Who else can we call if somebody's having some sort of exposed to a chemical?
Poison control.
Poison control, exactly. They should be able to help us right out. So, all right. So, quick review. Couple of quick questions. The ERG, which color pages is an index of dangerous goods in numerical order: blue, yellow, green, or orange?
Yellow.
Yellow. When approaching a scene of suspected hazmat, you should position yourself where?
Upwind.
Upwind.
Upstream.
Upstream, upwind, exactly. Isolation distances can be found in what section?
Green.
Green. On the safety data sheet, which is the more severe hazard, danger or warning?
Danger.
Okay. Where are our MSDSs kept?
Utility.
In the linen room. The exclamation point on the pictogram. Skin eye irritant, explosive, gas under pressure, or carcinogen?
You know,
Could be all the above. It's for one of those.
It can't be. It can
others.
only be one of them.
read them again.
Skin eye irritant, explosive, gas under pressure, or carcinogen?
Explosive.
No.
Under pressure.
You were right the first time. Skin eye
Oh,
irritant.
was it?
I just said it was a hard question. I was
Well,
saying,
they did mention that, and I thought, why would that exclamation, why would they put a picture there?
okay.
What's the one where you got the two things poured together? Isn't that-
Corrosive.
It's corrosive. Yep. There's only 9. Yeah. The fish one you don't need. I like the fish one with the X on the eyes. That's pretty cool. All right. Thank you. I'm good.